So in order to prove that, you have to add the angle, no? Convert polar to exponential. Under the polar form, theta is in degrees, no? If we're going to convert this into exponential form, we have this one. How should the only difference this time is that the angles are already in, no, region. While under the polar form, it is in degrees. We will simply add the angle since this is multiplication. So, law on exponents. We can multiply R1 and R2 directly. So, R1 times R2. Then they have the same base, that is A. Under multiplying uh, exponential form, no? They have the same base, simply add the exponent. It will become E to the J, then theta sub 1 plus J theta sub 2. Wherein J is a common factor, law on exponents. No? So we have R1 times R2. We can factor out J. I hope you can follow. It is in exponential form. If we're going to convert back to polar, the result is R1 times R2. In polar form, you have here theta sub 1 plus theta sub 2. So as what I have told you earlier, no? In multiplying complex quantity in polar form, R1 bar angle of theta sub 1 times R2 bar angle of theta sub 2, multiply the magnitude, then add the angle. As simple as that. What about when it comes to division? Any questions so far? Hello? Are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Let's have the division. If we're going to divide Z1 by Z2, so we have R1 theta sub 1 divided by R sub 2 bar angle of theta sub 2. If under multiplication, you have to multiply the magnitude at the angle. Under the division, you have to divide the magnitude, then subtract the angle. How sure are we? So, in order to prove, we're going to convert this into exponential form. Then, uh, division on exponents. So, you have here R1 over R2. The denominator, the exponent of the denominator, will become negative when we make this as a multiplier. So, the result, e to the j theta sub 1 times e to the negative j theta sub 2. Since they have the same base, considering the design of the exponent, R1, R2, e to the j, theta 1 minus theta sub 2. And under the polar form, it will become R1, R2, bar angle of theta 1 minus theta sub 2. This is R1 bar angle of theta 1 divided by R2 bar angle of theta sub 2. Divide the magnitude, then subtract the angle. As simple as that. And we can conclude. By the way, who is the... Merong bagong dating eh. DYNMX. Sino yun? DYNMYK. Sino ito? Hello? DYNMK. Tanggalin kita ha, kasi wala ako sa class list. Wala sa class list si DYNMK. So, hindi pa pwede. So, if we're going to make a conclusion, no? In adding or subtracting complex quantity, it should be in rectangular form for convenience. No? While in multiplying or dividing complex quantity, it will be more convenient to have this in polar form. Okay? What about the trigonometric form? Not three, but rather, what about for the trigonometric form? Given z1 to be r1, you have quantity cosine of theta sub 1 plus j sine of theta sub 1. Then say sub 2 is equal to r2 cosine of theta sub 2 plus j sine of theta sub 2. Since normally angles are given, no? Magnitude are given. So when you take cosine of that angle, sine of that angle, this will be reduced into rectangular form, no? So if you're going to add, convert this into rectangular form. If you're going to multiply, this can be converted into polar form, no? So it depends upon on the operation, whether addition or multiplication or division. I repeat, if you're going to add trigonometric form, no, complex quantities in trigonometric form, sulat ko na nga. So to add, you have to convert to rectangular form. To add or subtract, ano, you have to add or subtract. Then, to multiply or divide, you have to convert what? Convert to polar form for convenience. No? And under the exponential form, you can do the, sulat ko na nga. For the exponential form, no, that is j equal to r e to the j theta. So let's say addition o kaya ay subtraction. What you have to do is convert to rectangular form. Okay? Multiplication, division, you can apply the law on exponents directly. No? If you're going to multiply, add the angle. If you're going to divide, subtract the angle. No? Apply laws on exponent. Simple as that. No? Let's have the sample problem. Do you have an example last time?
Meron po, sir.
Ano yung example natin?
Ano po, sir? 3 plus J4 po.
Converting one form to the other form, ano?
Yes po, sir.
Ito, gawin natin, pagsama-samahin na natin. Let's have the sample problem. Sama-sama na, no? Ganitong lalabas. 2 minus J1. Then, we're going to multiply this to, say, 6 bar angle of 30 degrees. Then, the result, from the result, we're going to subtract 5 e to the j pi over 2. And the whole to be divided by, let's say, 10. Then, quantity cosine of 60 degrees. Then, plus j sine of 60 degrees. Bring out your calculator, no? So, to evaluate, let's have the solution. We're going to multiply two complex quantities. One in rectangular, the other is in polar. So again, it's more convenient to have this in polar form. So what we have to do is to convert 2 minus j1 into polar form. Do you have calculator? Will you convert place to two decimal places, ano? 2 minus j1 in polar form. So what is it?
2.23, sir.
2.23. What about the angle?
Negative 26.57.
Negative 26.57, no? Check natin kung tama yung angle. Your 2 minus j1, if we're going to plot that on a Cartesian coordinate, no? 2 is positive, so the real part is on this side. Ito yung ating 2. Then j1 is negative. Negative is directed downward. Andito yun. So ito yung ating negative j1, no? So it lies on the fourth quadrant. And the resultant of these two vectors is somewhere here. Andito. And the angle measured in a clockwise direction is negative. So tama, negative 26.57. Ito yon. So multiplied by 6 bar angle of 30 degrees. Then minus, you have 5 e to the j, pi all over 2. Then this 10 cosine of 60 plus j sine of 60 can be converted into rectangular form. Knowing that cosine of 60 is 0.5, pakisimplify nga. 10 cosine of 60 plus j sine of 60. Cosine of 60 is 0.5 times 10 is 5, no? Plus j, what about this? 8.66. Will you check? Is it 8.66?
0.866, sir.
At times 10.
8.66 po, sir.
Tama, no? Tama. Sige. So, this time, we can we can multiply the two quantities. That is 2.23 times 6. Ito. 2.23 times 6. 13 point
13.38.
13.38. Now, simply combine the angle. Negative 26.57 plus 30 is positive 3 point ilan? 43?
3.43 po.
Still in degrees, ano? Then minus 5 e to the j pi over 2. We cannot subtract directly since one is in polar form, the other one is in exponential. So what we have to do is to convert exponential to polar form. Under the polar form, you have here pi over 2 is 90 degrees, right? Pi over 2, 1 pi is 180 degrees, divide by 2, that is 90 degrees. Then divided by, will you convert Will you convert pi plus j 8.66 into polar form? Actually, ganito na lang yan eh. Oh. Pwede ka na nga, when you look at the problem, 10 cosine of 60 plus j sine of 60 is in trigonometric form. Converting this into polar form, that is 10 bar angle of 60. Hindi mo na kailangan i-convert into rectangular eh. Since we are in division, no? Do you follow? So you can omit this part. Okay, let's continue. Now for the numerator, no, we cannot combine directly unless we convert this into rectangular form. Will you convert 13.83 bar angle of 3.43 into rectangular form? What will it be? 13.83 bar angle of 3.43 degrees.
13.36.
13.36. What about the imaginary part?
0.80.
0.80.
80.
Rounded off ito.
Yes, sir.
Nakapix ang calculator nyo into 2 decimal places.
Yes
Sige.
po.
What about 5 bar angle of 90? If we're going to plot this on a Cartesian coordinate, yung 90 degrees andito. The magnitude is 5. There's no real component, no? So, ibig sabihin, converting this into rectangular form, we have minus j 5. Then divide by 10, bar angle of 60 degrees. This time, we can combine real to real, imaginary to imaginary. What will be the result? The real part is still 13.36. The imaginary part this time is negative j. 5 minus 0.8 is 4.2. No? Then divided by 10, bar angle of 60. It's more convenient to divide complex quantities in polar form. So convert 13.36 minus j 4.2 into polar form. What is the result? Magnitude. I hope everybody
For
can. Ilan?
14.00.
14.0.
00, sir.
Ganyan.
Apo.
Then, what about the angle?
Negative 17.45.
Negative 17.45. Now, this time, we can easily divide, Divide the magnitude. So, 14 divided by 10, it is simply 1.4. Then, subtract the angle. Negative 17.45 minus 60 is negative 77.45, right? Negative 77.45. Teka, pagkasihin ko ha. Hindi kasi. So, Z then, it is now equal to 1.4, then bar angle of negative 77.45 degrees. Medyo mahaba yung proseso, no? We keep on converting from one form to the other form. However, calculators can do this directly. It will convert directly. Will you enter the given quantities in the calculator of operation in complex? Alam ko kaya ng calculator directly, depending upon on the model. Will you try? Direct computation on the calculator. Ang mode ninyo naka-complex.
Sir, question po.
Yes.
Sir, dun po sa calculator, paano po i-input yung imaginary yung J po?
Depende. Normally, kama.
Wala pa sigot. Thank you po, sir.
Kama ang separator mo dun eh. Pero depende din sa model ng calculator. But normally, it's kama. Meron na ba? May value na. Pagdating sa application, kung ganito ang gagawin ninyong solution, napakahaba. It's waste of time. If you know how to operate your calculator using complex quantities directly, then you can save time. Anong model ng calculator mo? Direct na nako-compute, in-enter mo yung mga that is the default, no? Yun yung default. Pagka anyway, if you're going to convert rectangular to polar, ganito ba ang lalabas? Hindi ba mas mabilis, Saka, maliit ang chance na magkamali kayo. Unless na mali yung input quantity. But if everything is correct, definitely you will have the same answer. What about the rest? What about the rest? Ikaw na lang ata ang andyan eh.
Sir, nagsisyntax error po sa akin.
Yung operation mo ang mali, So it's
Opo.
better to consult the manual. Liza, are you around, Liza?
Yes po, sir.
Did you arrive at the same value using calculator directly?
Nagsisyntax error pa po.
I-consult mo yung manual kung bakit syntax error.
Opo.
Kasi normally pagka syntax error mali yung operation mo eh. Mali yung pagkakasunod ng operation. Brian?
Sir, nagtatry pa po. Nagtatry pa po, sir.
Pagdating sa exam, hindi ko nahahanapin yung yung manual operation eh. Direct na kayo dun sa answer. So it's better to familiarize yourself with with your calculator, no? Charlie?
Sir, tinatry ko pa po ulit kasi nagsisyntax error din po.
Ano yung model ng calculator mo?
Ano po, yung Casio FX991ES Plus po.
Oo. Advanced na yung model na yan eh. Baka sa ka lang.
Okay po, tatry ko po ulit. Thank you po.
Then Mike?
Sir, kakapasok ko pa lang po.
Ikaw ba yung pumasok hangin na DMK? Ikaw ba yun?
Opo. Hindi ko po napansin yung pangalan, sir. Sorry po.
Kasi hindi ko ma-check sa class list kung ganoon, So, always make use of your real name, ha?
Opo, sir. Pasensya na po.
Okay, it's okay. Franz? Wala na si Franz, umalis na. So, absent na si Franz, Fritz?
Nandito po.
Anong resulta? Using calculator directly.
Kapapasok ko lang din po.
Okay. Bakit?
Nakakaligtaan po eh.
10:15 ang start ng klase natin 11 na.
Opo. Akin po.
Nag-start nga ako ng 10:30 ganito, isa naman yung link na ginagamit natin. Alam nyo naman yung schedule natin, So, kung wala akong announcement, understood na magkaklase tayo. Kung hindi tayo magkaklase, magpo-post ako ng announcement ahead of time. Ha? Pero kung wala announcement, understood na may klase tayo. Ha?
Opo, opo.
Iyan. Iyan.
Sir, nag-try pa po. Nag-error po sa
James. James.
Sir, nagka-try din po. Nag-error po kasi.
Master ninyo yung calculator niyo, no? Kasi pagdating ng board exam, ano na lang under time pressure yon. Kailangan alam nyo i-manipulate ng mas mabilis. Janine? Janine? Hello, Janine? Wala na rin si Janine. Umalis na. So, absent na rin to, no? Joan? Joan? Wala na rin si Joan. Hindi kita marinig. Pero may problema sa mic mo. Hindi kita marinig. Jan? Jan? Wala na si Jan. Absent na rin. Jan Joshua. Oo. Did you arrive at the same value using calculator directly? Ha? Hindi ka ba nakikinig? Hello. Ah, ah, kahit i-take note ko, no, para mabibigyan ko kayo ng ng additional points. Sabik lang. John Joshua Babylonia. Yung isang babae kanina na sumasagot, sino yun? Yung nagre-recitation kanina na babae, sino yun? Julia, ikaw ba yun?
Yes po, sir.
Ano ang ECE21 kayo, ano? Okay, let's continue. Mamaya na ulit ako mag-roll call. Dalawa yung lalaking sumasagot kanina. Sino isa? Babylonia. Brian Bautista. Okay, let's continue. Paano kung halimbawa may square root? Kukunin pa natin yung square root nitong quantity na to. The answer is 1.4 bar angle of negative 77.45. What about if, let's say, we're going to extract the root of this quantity? How will you take the square root of 77.45 degrees? 1.4 can be evaluated directly. Kunin mo yung square root ng 1.4, kuha na ng calculator yan. What about the angle? So let's have the roots of a complex quantity. Before going further, no? Square root of 4, or say 16. This will give you two values, plus or minus 4. No? So when we say square root, we must have two values. When we say cube root, we must have three values. Let's say the cube root of 8. What's the answer? Using calculator. 2. Di ba ang sabi ko sa inyo, pagka square root, dalawa ang root. Pagka cube root, tatlo. So what are the remaining two roots? Dito, the first root is positive 4, the second root is negative 4. What about the second root on this one? Is it negative? Negative 2 to the third power is not positive 8, it is negative 8. So it is not negative 2. Eh, dalawa lang naman yan kung hindi positive, negative. So what are the remaining two roots? Binigay yan sa board exam. Find the three roots of the given quantity. Ibig sabihin, tatlo yun. Tatlo cube roots yun. Pagka fourth roots, 4 yun. And using calculator, it will always give you only one value. No? So what are the remaining values? Ganito ang gagawin natin. Let's set the roots of a complex quantity. Roots of complex quantity. So in order to formulate the formula, no, let's have the general polar form of a complex quantity. General polar form. The standard polar form is R bar angle of theta. Now the general, we have Z equal to R bar angle of theta plus 360 degrees of K. K is simply a multiplier that rotates the vector by 360 degrees. It is a multiplier that rotates the vector by 360 degrees. So when K is equal to 1, it means you have only one revolution. With K equal to 2, it means that you have two revolutions. That is 720. No? Or let's say, the angle turns out to be 720 degrees. Instead of writing 720 degrees, it can be rewritten as 360 degrees times 2. It means to say, you have two complete revolutions. So, that is the general polar form. Now, we're going to raise this to a certain quantity. For a while. Do we have powers on complex number? Wala pa, no? Wala pa?
Wala pa po, sir.
Kasi yung powers on complex number, yun yung i-apply natin dito. Unahin ko yung powers on complex number. Bago ito. Sorry, dapat mauna ito. Power on complex number. That is, given z equal to x plus jy plus or minus jy. Then we are interested on z to the n. That is x plus jy, the quantity raised to n. Halimbawa, ganito. Given 2 minus j3, the quantity squared. We can apply binomial theorem. That is 2 squared, twice the product of the 2, twice the product of the 2, no? The square of the last term. Using binomial theorem. So this will give us 4, then minus 2 by 3 is 6 by 2, 12. Then this is what? Negative j3 squared can be taken as j squared, then 3 squared, no? Such that 4 minus j12, j squared negative, j squared is what? Magpa-positive, ano? Am I correct? Will become positive 9. J squared is negative 1, preceded by negative sign, will become Is it correct? Tama ba? J squared is negative 1. Preceded by negative sign, it will become positive 1. Then 3 squared is 9. So the result is 13 minus J12. No? Using binomial theorem. What about if, let's say, we have 2 minus J3 to the 100? Again, another board problem. No? Binigay sa ECE board exam. It will take you a long time if you're going to apply binomial theorem. And you're going to apply what we call the Pascal triangle. It's time consuming. So what you have to do is to apply the power on complex quantity. Ganito ang gagawin natin. Convert rectangular to polar. Under the polar form, it will become r bar angle of theta, the quantity raised to n. But no properties on exponent or no properties, mathematical properties that can be applied directly. So what we have to do is to convert polar into exponential. And under the exponential form, you have r e to the j theta. But your theta here is already in radian. Unlike in polar, it is in degrees. Then law on exponent. Diba meron tayong a times b raised to n can be rewritten as a to the n, b to the n. Ito magiging r to the n, e to the j, and theta. And converting this into polar form, you have r to the n, the new angle is n, then theta. But take note that this is from r bar angle of theta raised to n. So what is the rule? What is the formula that you have to remember? If you're going to raise complex quantity into a certain power, convert this into polar form. Then once it is in polar form, the rule is raise the magnitude, whatever the exponent, multiply the angle by whatever the exponent. No? As simple as that. So, ibig sabihin, kung halimbawa binigay A2, bar angle of 45 degrees, i-raise natin sa third power. So this is simply 2 cube, then the angle multiplied by 3, 3 by 45. And 2 cube is 8, then the result is 45 by 3, 90, 135. 135 degrees. No? Will you try in your calculator? 2 bar angle of 45 to the third power. Using calculator, what is the result?
Same po, sir.
Ano yan ha? Direct sa calculator ha?
Pero ikaw convert pa po into polar.
Ang lumalabas rectangular.
Opo.
O yun yung default talaga naka-rectangular. No? At any rate, you will arrive at the same value. Mas madali na mag-convert into polar form eh. No? So, I hope everybody got the same answer. No? Power on complex number. O, punta na tayo sa roots of a complex quantity. Any questions so far? What is the rule? Raise the magnitude, whatever the exponent, then multiply the angle by the exponent. Let's set the roots of a complex number. Hanggang oras ba tayo? Hanggang oras tayo?
11:40 45 po, sir.
We still have enough time. Ano? Roots of complex number or complex quantity. So what we have to do is to have the general polar form. General polar form. Nagaganito na kayo sa circuits 2? Nagko-complex na kayo?
Wala pa po.
Andun pa rin kayo sa sinusoidal waveform.
Yes po, dun pa lang.
RMS value, effective value, average value, andun pa lang kayo. Wala pa.
Andun na po kami, sir.
So naka-time domain kayo. Eventually, mag-frequency domain kayo. Halimbawa, ang equation ng voltage nyo ay, let's say, E is 220 sine of 370, no? Plus, say, 30 degrees. Halimbawa, yan ang equation ng voltage. Naka-time domain ito. No? Time domain. So, pagdating sa application, i-convert niyo ito into frequency domain. Under the frequency domain, it's no longer small letter, but it will be capital letter. No? Kung gamit niyo dito ay small b, ito ay magiging capital B. Then, yung 220, that is the maximum value. You're going to take the effective value or the RMS. And for the sinusoidal, the effective value is 220 divided by square root of 2. Then the corresponding angle is 30 degrees. Using 377 as the reference. Naka-polar form ka na. Then you can compute for the current, for the impedance, any other parameters, either in rectangular or polar form. So, pagka ganito, frequency domain. Ito, time domain. Okay, let's continue. At least nauna tayo kaysa sa circuits. Kasi pagka nauna ang circuits, baka mahirapan kayo. So, the general polar form is Z equal to R bar angle of theta plus 360 degrees of K. K is a multiplier wherein it can be 0, 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. No? That is the value of K. Now, we are interested on the nth root. Ibig sabihin, we're going to raise this to 1 over n. The nth root will become z raised to 1 over n is simply r bar angle of theta plus 360 degrees of k, the quantity raised to 1 over n. Let's say square root. Pagka square root, 1 half. Pagka cube root, 1/3. No? Pagka fourth root, 1/4. So what is the principle behind? Using the powers on complex number, the result then will become z to 1 over n is simply r raised to 1 over n, multiply the angle by the exponent. That is 1 over n times theta plus 360 degrees of k. Kaya yung multiplier mo dito, magiging fraction since you're interested on the nth root. No? And this time, k has a limit. With k equal to 0, you have the first root. With k equal to 1, you have the second root. With k equal to 2, you have the third root. Or up to n minus 1. So let's say, so with k equal to 0, you have the first root. Let's say we are interested on the 3 roots. Third root, cube root, no? N equal to 3. So 3 less 1 is 2. Hanggang 2 ka lang. Fourth 4 roots, no? N equal to 4, 4 less 1 is 3, hanggang 3 ka dito. K equal to 0, K equal to 1, K equal to 2, K equal to 3. Let's have an example. Kanina, kinuha natin yung cube root ng 8, lumalabas isa lang. That is 2. Yun yung binibigay ng calculator, no? So, let's find the complete roots. Find, ito yung, binigay sa board exam. Find the 3 roots of, say, 125 ba, perfect cube? 5 by 5, 25. Gawin na lang natin 1, 2, 5. So, let's set the solution. Kahit gamitan mo ito ng calculator, isa lang ang lalabas, So, ganito. Yung 125, pagka pinat natin yan sa Cartesian coordinate, andito yun 125. Wala kang imaginary part. It's only a real part. That is 125. No? And 125, representing this as a vector or a complex quantity, it can be rewritten as 125 bar angle of 0. Do you agree? Tingnan niyo yung position ng vector. 125. This is 125. The position is directly horizontal. There's no inclination. So the angle must be 0. Okay? Now, converting this into general polar form, it will become 125 bar angle of under the general polar form, it can be rewritten as 125 0 plus 360 degrees. Tama ba? Then, times k. That is the general polar form. Okay? Now, find the cube roots. It follows then, the cube root of 125 is 125 bar angle of 360 degrees K, the quantity raised to 1/3. And cube root of 125 is simply 5. While 360 degrees K, magiging ano ito? 1/3 of 360 degrees K. And if we're going to simplify, 360 over 3 is 120 degrees K. Do you follow? Now, let's have the first root. The cube root of 125 is 5 bar angle of 120 degrees K. Now, with K equal to 0, we have the first root. We can say then that the cube root of 125 is 5 bar angle of 0. And if we're going to plot 5 bar angle of 0, no? Or 5 bar angle of 0, converting polar to rectangular, is simply 5. Yes. Anything? Do you want to say something? Okay, let's continue. So, cube root of 125 is 5 bar angle of 0. Under the rectangular form, it is simply 5. Now, let's have the second root. First root ito, ano? With k equal to 1. That is the second root. Then, cube root of 125 is 5. 120 by 1 is simply 120 degrees. Second root. And the third root, that is with k equal to 2. And the result, the cube root of 125 turns out to be still 5. But the angle is different. 120 by 2, 240 degrees. Let's check, no? Let's check. If we're going to reverse the process, 5 bar angle of 0. Pagka nilocate natin yan, andito yan. 5 bar angle of 0. Now, if we're going to raise this to the third power, the result is what? 5 bar angle of 0 to the third power is 125. 0 times 3 is 0. Right? So, the position then, pagka ni-raise natin sa third power, ang position ng vector natin, andito. This time, it is 125 bar angle of 0. No? So, that is the first root. What about with k equal to 1, the second root? Check natin. Five bar angle of 120. Nasaan yung position yan? Hindi ba yung 5 bar angle of 120 somewhere here? Tama? 5 bar angle of 120. Now, if we're going to raise to the third power, the result is 5 bar angle of 120 to the third power is 125. 120 by 2 by 3 is 360 degrees. And if we're going to plot 125 bar angle of 360 degrees, ito yung ating reference, 125, but it will rotate one complete revolution. Di ba dito rin babagsak? Ito yung 125 bar angle of 360 degrees. Same positions with the first root. What about the second root? If we're going to plot the second root, it is 240 degrees, 120, 240, probably somewhere here. Pagka ni-raise natin sa third power, 5 bar angle of 240 degrees to the third power, it is 125. 240 by 3 is 720 degrees. So 720 degrees, you have two complete revolutions, but the final position is still the same. Any question? Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
Yes po.
So, bakit kaya ang sa calculator isa lang lumalabas? With k equal to 0, ito yung sinasabing principal root. No? Principal root. Ibig sabihin, the calculator, lahat ng calculator, it is designed to give a principal value, the principal root. That is k equal to 0. Yun yung nakaprogram sa calculator. However, if you're going to apply MATLAB, MATLAB is a software known as Matrix Laboratory. And for the Matrix Laboratory, you can find all the roots. Yun yung program pagka MATLAB. No? Pero pagka calculator, principal root lang ang nakaprogram. Any questions so far? One more. Let's have one more example. Halimbawa, find the four roots. No? Pinapa-evaluate yung four roots of sabihin natin 2 cube is 8 times 2, 32. Halimbawa, 32. Then, bar angle of 60 degrees. So, under the general form, the general polar form, you have the fourth roots of 32, then bar angle of 60 degrees plus 360 degrees of K. No? So, ito yung magiging fourth roots of 32 is 2. You have to divide the angle by 4. Kasi fourth roots eh. Pwede na hindi ilagay yung degrees eh. Understood na yun eh. So, if we're going to divide this by 4, the result is 60 divisible by 4 ba? 30, 15 ano? 15 plus 360 over 4 is 92. K equal to 0, first root. K equal to 0, anong lalabas? We have 2 bar angle of 15. K equal to 1, the result is 2 bar angle of 15 plus 90 is 105. No? With K equal to 2, then we have 2, 180 plus 15, 195. Then with K equal to 3, hanggang 3 ka lang. 4 less 1 is 3, so hanggang 3 ka lang. It will become, ilan? 90 by 3 is 270 plus 15 to 85. Those are the 4 roots of the given quantity. So if given in rectangular form, convert into polar. If given in trigonometric, convert into polar. If given in exponential, convert into polar form. Okay? Nag-upload ako ng module about complex quantity. So yun yung magiging natin, coverage ng complex quantity. If just in case na hindi ko kayo mamimit, consult the module. Pero mag-a-announce ako kung hindi ko kayo mamimit. Any questions so far? Gusto ninyong picturean yung lecture?
Yes po, sir.
Balik ko sa slide 1, ha? Mas maganda yung nakikinig kayo, tapos sa kanya na lang logarithm of j to the base j raised to j raised to negative logarithm of j to the base j raised to j. Minodify ko lang ito eh. Ang binigay sa board exam, ganito eh. Logarithm of 5 to the base 5 raised to 5 raised to negative logarithm of 5 to the base 5 raised to 5. Yan yung ibinigay sa board exam. So, minodify ko, ginawa kong j. Paano nyo evaluate yan? Hindi kaya ng calculator yan. So that will be our topic next meeting. That is the logarithm of complex quantity. No? After the logarithm of sine of 3 theta is equal to trigonometric identity. At the same time, cosine of 3 theta, so you have to prove two identities. But this can be solved easily using the Moivre's theorem, powers on complex number, and hitting two birds in one shot. Pwede natin combine. So, ito yung topic natin next meeting.